The following program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit AbsoluteLoans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information. You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. Sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome to the Money Hour at 11:50 a.m. KKNW, the Saturday, May 24th show. I'm your host, Tina Mitchell, and mortgage expert. Thank you for taking time to talk money. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but we are here to answer any questions or connect you with any of my guests that are going to be in studio for this segment. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Again, it's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And my lineup for studio today, Ian Tolmie with Karen Transitions Seattle. For many of you listening today, now may be the time when the lifestyle that you're used to fit so perfectly no longer does. You may be entering your golden years and thinking of a senior transitioning. If you are, or if you have a parent that is entering this next stage in their life, you will not want to miss this segment. Also in studio, Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate and Debbie Walter with ReMax Northwest Realtors. Here to discuss how pricing your home in the market for sale is really important, knowing how to market your home. And in this time right now, the real estate market is so hot. For those of you that are sellers, you still have to have a strategy, and a really good strategy on how to list and price your home, because you want to maximize the profit that you're actually going to receive. So I've got two expert guests in studio to discuss that. Great information and great guests in studio today. For more information on any topics discussed, please call into the show 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or on themoneyhour.com. And now I think it's time for a little money chat.
Money.
I thought I'd bring to you guys today a little bit about my arena, and that is mortgages. And I want to talk to you about questions and things to ask your mortgage consultant. There's a lot of people doing my job, especially right now, because the market, there's a lot of activity going on out there. So what you're seeing is new people coming into the industry, or people that got out of the industry when the market was tough and they're coming back in. And so I think it's really, really important that you know the right questions to ask your mortgage consultant to make sure that they're a good fit for you. And more importantly, somebody that understands the industry and what's happening in it right now, has the team that can support you, and has the knowledge of how to walk you through the process to make it successful. So here's the first question I ask. Ask about the approval process. Find out if there's a cost associated with the approval process. There should not be any upfront fees that you pay. You also want to make sure that you're going through the pre-approval, not the pre-qualification stage. So there's a huge difference between being pre-approved and being pre-qualified. A letter that you're receiving that says pre-qualified, basically it's an estimate, just verbal information getting from you, from your mortgage consultant or mortgage representative, on estimating what they think that you might be able to approve for. Now, they're asking a lot of questions. They're pulling a credit report in most situations, but because it has not gone through any formal system, it's a pre-qualification. Now, the next is a pre-approval. A pre-approval is a solid loan commitment. Sometimes solid loan commitment, you want to take a look at what the letter reads, and through a pre-approval process, if it says you've been pre-approved by an automated system, you need to have them go through the full underwriting process, because what an automated system does is basically someone is putting it through a computer system to get an automated approval or findings to say that you've been pre-approved. The problem with this is it's based on data entry or data integrity. So if your mortgage consultant doesn't know the information that they're putting in there and it's actually correct. They're reading something incorrectly. They're not sure how to calculate income correctly because they're not an actual underwriter. That can cause some really big challenges when it comes time to move forward for closing. Now, a true approval should have that it's gone through the underwriting process and everything's been completed outside of appraisal and title, anything related to the property. Now, it's important to understand when you're pre-approved based on the information provided at loan application. So just because you have a solid loan commitment doesn't mean that you're going to get that mortgage if you've made any changes at all to your current financial situation. So it's really important to understand that it's only as good as the information provided at loan application. So you need to make sure if there's changes to your employment, liabilities, assets, or anything like that, you're checking with your mortgage consultant first prior to doing that. Talk about loan options. It's important that you understand what your options are. The worst thing you can do is have one option provided to you, because there are multiple loan options, even in this environment where you think that there might not be a lot of financing available. There is. Most situations, you're going to have a minimum of 3 loan options to compare. A lot of times you're looking at maybe 5 loan options side by side in the options that would be available. And a good example might be if you're a lower down payment, you're looking at an FHA 3.5% down payment, and you're always comparing it to your conventional financing. Now, conventional with low down, most of you probably know about mortgage insurance. If you're coming in with less than 20% down, you have to pay it in some form. But what most people don't know is on conventional financing, you have options. You can pay it monthly. You can do a one-time complete buyout. You can do a split. May not make any sense in this program right now because there's not enough time. But pick up the phone and call me and I can get you the information on that. Most important to understand is there's options and you want to make sure that you're looking at all of them. The worst mistake that you can make is to close on a mortgage and find out that a coworker or a friend or family member went with another loan and you're questioning yourself whether you chose the right program or not. So you want to make sure that you're looking at all of your options. Mortgage insurance is a big one to make sure that you're looking at the difference there. Now, also on cost, there are not necessarily as much a difference in closing costs from one lender to another. Maybe you could talk a few $100, $500, $900, let's say, worst case scenario from one lender to the next on actual closing cost. That's not really what you're comparing. What you're comparing is you're comparing the options that are going to be available to you in the process. But here's what a lot of people don't understand with closing costs. There's a multiple of options that you have to choose from in cost structures, as well as multiple interest rates that you can choose from. So let's use today as an example. I'm not quoting any interest rates. Obviously, it's based on a lot of different qualifying factors, but let's just say that an interest rate at 4%. You can get an interest rate of 4%, which is under what the market rate is going for right now today. Maybe the market rate is closer to 4.25%. 4% might be paying additional points to buy it down. 4.25% being at a par to market interest rate. But actually, you can take a 4.5, maybe 4.75% interest rate. 4.75% being a no closing cost loan. So you're getting all of your different cost structures lined out to make a decision on what the best financial choice is for you and cost structure on interest rates. So you want to look and make sure that you understand that. Ask your mortgage consultant how long that they've been in the industry. Now, you got to get a start somehow. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and how I got through my first 12, 24 months in the industry, I have no idea. But thank you to my clients that gave me a chance. Thank you to referral sources that gave me an opportunity. But it was rough. And I think I just I was naive in the process of even not knowing what I didn't know. Almost 20 years later, I realized that you really have to work with somebody that has experience. I would say minimum 5 years is a good amount of time that they've done enough loans to really understand how the process works. I'd also ask who they have supporting them. Now, not to say that every mortgage consultant has to have a support team behind them, but it gives you an indicator as far as, number one, are they doing a lot of business and trying to do it on their own? I think that can be a real issue to get into because there's a lot of things that are happening during the process. Or if they are on their own and they don't have a support team, then maybe that's because they're not doing a lot of volume, and that might be an answer there for you as well. Again, not enough time during Money Chat. I just like to put a little tease out there for you to prompt you to pick up the phone and give the show a call. Lots of information that I can share with you on mortgages, as well as all of the guests that I have in studio. You can call 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Coming up next on on the Money Hour. Are you thinking about the next life transition? And in the 50-plus generation, life experience has proven that preparation and planning makes a successful transition. Without preparation, hard word for me to say today, without preparation, the transition can be pretty stressful, not only for you, but also for your family. Right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.
To defeat blood cancer, it will take the best scientists, the top doctors, and the finest laboratories, not to mention a crew of dedicated sailors. Cancer cures today, not someday. That's the goal. Raise a sail to find a cure. Celebrating the 20th anniversary, the Leukemia Cup Regatta benefiting the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society will take place Saturday, June 7th at Elliott Bay Marina. Register today at leukemiacup.org/WA. That's leukemiacup.org/WA.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 24th show. I bring into studio each week the best of the best experts in our local market on everything money. I'm here to help you in today's economy. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but we are here to help and answer any questions that you have and directly connect you with any of our guests that you're going to hear in studio today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And right now in studio, Ian Tolmie with Caring Transitions, determining the right path for you, caring for an aged loved one, and managing the demands of your own life can be trying and put real stress on the entire family. It can be a non-eventful. In this situation, it's good for it to be non-eventful if you have the right help through the transition. And that's why I'm excited to have Ian in studio. Ian, thank you so much for visiting me today.
Thank you for having me, Tina.
First time coming into the show.
It is. Thank you very much for having me be here.
And I think this is just a real great topic because there is a lot of transitioning happening, and with the baby boomers, and just really being educated on options and how to make that process smooth for you is really important. Ian Tolmie and Jennifer Black are passionate about caring for seniors, and Caring Transition Seattle is a direct result of this passion. As partners, Jennifer and Ian opened Caring Transitions Seattle as a result of their own family going through an emotional stress and helping their own parents transition from large homes where they had lived for decades to much smaller residents. Ian and Jennifer have lived in Seattle for over 20 years and love time that they get to spend with their twin 4-year-old sons, Dodge and Duncan. I bet you have your hands full there.
It absolutely keeps us very busy.
Yeah, so how's it nice? How's it like working with your wife?
It's great. It's wonderful. She runs the show, and I do what she says, and it works out just great.
Of course, don't we all? We're all, yeah. All the women do that. So let's go ahead and start out with how did you and your partner decide, you and your wife, get into the senior relocation and downsizing business?
Yeah, well, you touched on it a little bit earlier, and we ran into it firsthand, and it's something that my parents a few years ago actually did a significant downsize from a 4,500 square foot house into an 1,800 foot townhouse, which they had to unload a lot of stuff. Now, fortunately, they were in good health, and they were able to do most of it themselves. But it took, my mom managed most of it. It took her about 2 years to accomplish all of it. And I find myself in an interesting position right now that I'm doing it again. And this time I'm becoming a customer of Caring Transitions as well as a Caring Transitions owner, because we're working with a Caring Transitions Charlotte owner to actually help my parents downsize again. They'll be going into an assisted living facility now. Okay.
Yeah. So right now, what are the most common services that your company is providing?
We really find that it's an advantage to be able to offer a comprehensive solution. And there are a lot of companies out there that will do a physical estate sale. There are companies out there that will do moving management. What we really like to do is we provide planning and space planning up front. We move into packaging. We'll do move management. We'll do unpacking and settling. We get into physical estate sales. And also one of the big differentiators is online estate sales that we offer. And so those are a lot of the comprehensive solutions that we offer a client.
So, Ian, what are some of the hardest situations that you have? I would imagine with downsizing and relocation, there's a lot of things that could come up. So in those projects, what are you seeing the issues are?
Well, there are a lot of issues, and one of the things we really find is you need to be compassionate. You need to be sensitive to what the family's going through, because frequently what's happening is there's been some sort of an event that has driven this downsizing need. And so there's an emotional stress that's happening to the family, and so frequently we want to make sure that we understand why are they going through this. If it's something that the family is still completely intact and they're just wanting to relocate or downsize, that presents one issue. If a family has just lost a loved one, we want to make sure that we're sensitive to that. Yeah. So it's always an issue making sure why that family's downsizing, making sure we understand, how they're going through it, what they're going through, and we can handle it in the right way.
And I would imagine there's a little procrastination that goes on too in this area, that it's sometimes they're waiting too long to get to where they need to be.
Absolutely. And we always tell people, don't start this when you're 80.
Yeah.
And it's something and you'd be amazed at how many families do, or just have no plan. And then you can call Caring Transitions and you can ask for a free consultation, and we're happy to come and talk to people just to give you an idea of what's involved, what it will take. We offer a number of different services, and sometimes people will use us for move management. Sometimes they'll use us for clean out. Sometimes they'll use us soup to nuts to completely liquidate an estate. But don't wait.
So it's kind of like an a la carte.
It is. It is. But it's something that we really just encourage people to reach out, plan early, and get your family involved. Get your daughters, your sons, your cousins, nephews, nieces, whoever's involved in helping you go through this. Get them involved earlier. Think about what's going to happen. Find out who the point people are going to be, so you really kind of can manage this properly. It makes it so much easier when and if something does happen.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you're a child and you have parents that are getting to this next stage of their life, pick up the phone and call, connect you with Ian, and really helping ahead and planning to make that transition a smoother process for them. So what about your company and the things that are a little bit different in yourself between the Seattle and like what you're doing in Seattle and in Bellevue?
Well, so some of the neat things that I mentioned, the online estate sales is a big differentiator for us. And it's important to think about, because there are a lot of times when a family can't have a physical estate sale if they're looking to liquidate. If they live in a country club because of covenants, those sorts of things. There are issues sometimes in condo associations, those sorts of things. And so an online sale is frequently a much better channel. And it's something, because of we're the largest in this space and nationally. And because of that, we have a lot of search engine optimization that really drives our business. And so we're not just dealing with local sales. We actually can expand that to a national sale and really drive a lot of dealers towards our sites to be able to liquidate these estates. And that really is a benefit to a lot of our clients.
So, Ian, if someone's listening right now and they're getting ready to go through that process and the downsizing, what are the steps? What are the first steps that they need to be taking?
I really think the first step would be to reach out, and not just Caring Transitions, but reach out to a planner, a company like ours that will actually come in and they will help you really figure out what you need to go through. They'll figure out what you need to put in place. They'll get involved in space planning, find out where you're going to go, and really kind of help map it out. And it may not be something that you'll use this for years, but at least you've identified the needs and who those vendors are that can help you.
So if you're just tuning in right now, we have Ian Tolmie with Caring Transitions Seattle here in studio, talking about our seniors and the process and the preparation to moving forward to that next stage. So are there things that a family can do to prepare in advance to help soften the blow of losing a loved one and the transition that may accompany that?
It's important, I think, to find out who's going to be in charge of the estate.
Okay.
Obviously, that's something from a financial planner is going to give you that advice. We're going to give you that advice. People change a little bit when you start talking about assets and money and these sorts of things. And so you want to make sure that the siblings are all together and there to support usually the parents that are transitioning. And so it's something that we really encourage the siblings, the parents, everybody to get together, get us involved, have us come in. We can do the consultation, and then we can really begin to give them an idea of who will handle what pieces. And they may want to handle portions of a sale or portions of the liquidation or the move or those sorts of things. But find out what pieces they want. There are family heirlooms that need to be transitioned. Like in my case, I'm in Seattle. My parents are in Charlotte. And it's something that it's really difficult when
not
you
really convenient.
Yeah, it's not convenient.
Yeah.
I have a sister in Atlanta, a sister in Nashville, but none of us are in Charlotte to help my parents. And so we really found that it's advantageous to be able to have a resource that's close to your parents when they're transitioning, especially when, the modern day when a lot of us as children don't live next to our parents anymore.
And I would imagine when you're going through, especially with the transition with moving, and they've been in their home for a long time, that you probably have some stories. What are some unusual challenges or stories that you have that you can share with my listeners?
We get into a lot of things. Some of the fascinating ones, we get into a lot of hoarding situations where you have people that you go into their house and you wouldn't believe it. It is piled newspapers and things, and you barely have avenues between one room and another. Just because you have, and it may look like a mess, you can uncover all sorts of treasures. And rarely are you going to find a $100,000 Monet, but very frequently you find a thing of silverware sitting underneath the kitchen sink in a box covered by newspapers and trash. Wow. And that happens regularly. And so it's something that, we try to go through and be very professional about this and identify anything that we think might be of value. We will separate all of that, and then we'll talk to the family about how they want to treat that. Do they want to liquidate it? Do they want to keep that themselves? Do they want to send it to a sibling? Those are things that we need to look at. And then we go through and we can do a complete clean out. And so it's something that real estate agents love us because they're looking to sell a home. And they don't want all the stuff that's in the home. They just want to get selling the house. A lot of families need to get to that point quickly. So we can help them transition in a much shorter period of time to getting that house ready for sale.
So where do most of your referrals come from?
Well, like I mentioned, real estate agents are a great referral source for us because they want to get to selling that home as quickly as possible. We can come in, we can sell things, assets, do a clean out, fix the home up a little bit, get it ready for sale. Another big senior assisted living places are wonderful. They actually love us because frequently families will think they can take too much with them. And so they'll want to come in and they'll have all sorts of things and they'll have mapped out the space in their mind but not really be prepared for it. They end up moving twice. So they end up moving all their stuff in and then they get someone from the assisted living community to help them move the stuff that doesn't fit. So we'll come in, do a space planning session with them to really figure out what do you have space for, what can we bring? We move them one time.
So again, if you're listening to the show and you want to talk with Ian, pick up the phone, give the show a call, 1-855-400-1150. Again, it's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Got a minute, Ian, before going to our next commercial break. What is something that you want to leave with my listeners?
Well, I'd just like to say thanks. And we talked a little bit about it, that you can't plan too early. And I think that's the real message that I'm trying to get across here and reach out, whether it's Caring Transitions or one of our competitors. There are a lot of good companies out there. And we're very good at what we do. And we're happy to talk to people, consult, come in and do a planning session to really kind of map things out for them. So,
well, that's why you're in studio, because I only bring the best of the best in studio.
And we appreciate you having us. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for all the wealth of information. I appreciate it and look forward to having you come back.
Thank you, Tina.
Coming up next in the Money Hour, listing your home for sale is an art. There are important things that you need to do to attract the most buyers, resulting in the highest price. Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate and Debbie Walter with ReMax Northwest Realtors right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi. I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
Well, before I left my campsite, I was putting out my fire, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear showed up and hugged me?
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. He likes it when people correctly put out their campfires. He's pretty big on wildfire prevention. He's just letting you know you did good. With a hug. He's a hugger.
I just got a bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update!
All right, I'm going to let you go now. I've got a lot of ranger stuff to do. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Today might be the day I drop out of school. Today could be the last day I try. My parents alone can't stop me. My friends can't even stop me. but you might be able to.
With United Way, you could tutor me, be my mentor, or volunteer to just read with me. If someone had helped me earlier, I might not be struggling. And studies prove that kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. There are tons of ways people like you can help kids like me stay in school. And United Way is calling for you to be one of them. Because it takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between me becoming one or the other could be you. Make me a success, not a statistic.
Take the pledge to volunteer now at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert Tina Mitchell right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 24th show. Each week I share expert advice and inside knowledge on how today's events in our local economy can affect your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but we are here to answer any questions that you have or to connect you with any of my guests that I have in studio today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate and Debbie Walter with ReMax Northwest Realtors. If you're a seller, you're probably looking for ways to maximize your potential profits. If you're a buyer, you need to know the seller's strategy so you can actually get the best price for your home. And that's why I've invited Nicole and Debbie in studio today. Thanks so much, you guys, for coming in.
Thank you. Exciting to be here.
And normally I just interview one person at a time, so we'll have a little conversation with the two of them, so this will be a lot of fun. Just a little background about Nicole. Today, I'm excited to have Nicole in studio, an expert in her field. She has 16 years experience in the local real estate market, working with both buyers and sellers in a variety of market conditions. Committed to excellence, Nicole holds many advanced education designations within the real estate industry, is very active in her local community, and also coaches and trains other real estate agents throughout the country. She is truly dedicated to using the very best systems and strategies in her business to help her clients achieve their real estate goals in this current real estate environment. And Debbie Walter, ReMax Northwest Realtors. Debbie has been a real estate broker for over 12 years. ReMax Platinum Club Hall of Fame Lifetime Achievement, Women's Council of Realtors Entrepreneur of the Year for 2013 and Women's Council of Realtors President-elect for 2014. Debbie is number 8 Individual Pacific Northwest Region for 2013. Seattle 5-star Best Real Estate Agent 7 years running in top 5% and staging professional. Debbie works with predominantly engineers and physicians both in the Seattle and East Side area. Quite a bio for both of you, and that's why you're here. I'm just excited. I know both of you personally as well through the Women's Council of Realtors, and it's just exciting to have you in studio and share your wealth of information. So let's go ahead and start out with a pricing strategy. Should you list your home for an attractive price to get buyers in? What about pricing a little bit more to hope to get a better a higher price, or list it a little bit less than what you're seeing your competition? What is your advice on listing strategy for my sellers?
You know, it's a fine line, right? Because even in today's market, it's an appreciating market, but you can overprice a property. And if you do, you will miss out on a substantial amount of it. That being said, I fully understand a seller does not want to feel like they left money on the table. Mm-hmm. So I don't tend to underprice it, but you price it right in line where everybody else is so that the buyer feels like they're getting a value. You get the most interest and activity when you first come on the market, when you're the hot commodity, and we are in a market where there are more buyers than sellers. So if you can price it right, you'll be able to generate that extra activity and a lot of times get multiple offers, which allows you to leverage up that price.
Definitely. And one of the sayings that I have every day is that really in this market, you don't have to fear about underpricing, but you definitely have to fear overpricing. So if the seller comes to us and they're looking at the last recent comparable and they want to tag on an extra $20,000, that's really, really very dangerous, because what will happen is buyers will perceive that property to be overpriced. And in this market, if you're sitting on market after your first weekend, buyers perceive you to be overpriced or something wrong with the house.
And it's funny. It depends on the site that you're in, because I tell people you need to ask your agent exactly what to do and follow their lead if you're working with someone that has the right strategies and knows how to price. As a buyer, if you just put yourself in a buyer's position as a seller, if you were buying, you're going to be looking online at all the properties. So if you see a property that is higher priced, you've got all the pictures and everything right there. It can be devastating to the results that you're going to see.
Absolutely.
So what about with the multiple offer? How is pricing affecting in getting multiple offers, more than one person that's coming in and bidding on that home?
How is pricing affected? Well, it's like anything. If you go in a fish tank with a piece of meat, you're going to have all the fish swarm to that attractive piece of meat. And that's what you want in that multiple offer frenzy, because then the seller really has options and choices. And you're going to get the buyers emotionally vested in that home. And at that point, they're going to be willing to pay more than they would have if the home were sitting on market for a couple weeks with no offers in hand.
Makes total sense. I love that visual. You would think that would really bring it to a point on how pricing is important. So what other marketing tips do the two of you have for people that are selling right now? Because I think a lot of sellers just think it's easy and they're going to make a lot of money. But you may make a lot of money, but you can make a lot more money and get a higher profit if you do everything right.
Exactly. In a fast-paced market, it's not you just throw a sign in the yard and you put it on our multiple listing service and it goes out to everybody. It's still marketing. Buying a home is such an emotional investment, right? You're buying a house, but you're buying the lifestyle you want to live in that house.
Yes.
And the analogy I always have with my clients is candles. I love candles, right? You can buy candles anywhere. I can go to Target and get them for $5, or I can go to Nordstrom's and pay $65 for candles. What would possess somebody to pay $65 for a candle? It's the marketing around it. It's the presentation.
Yes.
It's the emotion that I get with it and all the little extras that they throw into my bag when I go to Nordstrom's and buy this really fun, fancy candle. It's the same principle for your house. How you market it and how you show it makes a big difference in that final amount that
and all those little things make a difference. And now is the time to do it, because you're getting multiple buyers. So even more so than if we're in a different market and it's more of a buyer's market, because in this market I think it's even more dangerous, because you're getting all of these people that are coming in, and so you've got the opportunity to really get a great price on that home if you do it right. Absolutely. Debbie, any marketing?
Well, one of the things I tell my sellers is you get one shot in this market. You get one opportunity to impress the socks out of them. And if you feel that all you can do is just kind of go as is in this market, that just simply does not work. I would say on average, I spend a good month up to 45 days of getting a home prepped, collaborating with my seller, collaborating with my contractors and other resources to really make the home shine.
Okay, and you're a staging expert. I mean, so you do a lot with educating your clients on how to stage their homes.
Correct. I really feel that the power of staging is absolutely critical, and folks that aren't doing that, please at least close your toilet lids. When I look at photos and see open toilet lids, it drives me nuts.
Wow.
There's little things that you can do that don't cost a lot of money, and then there's, you can invest more dollars. And that staging, we know statistically, will typically earn you about 125% return.
I was just going to ask you if there's some type of statistics or something that really is going to bring up that profit on the home. So what about brokers' opens? And explain for somebody, a listener that doesn't know what a broker's open is.
So a broker's open, on the weekends we have public open houses. The broker's opens are during the week, and it's an opportunity for the agents to come in and view the home. Our market is moving so fast, it's not really that effective for a seller. It's fine if you do it, but the reality is if an agent has a buyer, they're not waiting for the broker's open to see it. They are getting in there with that buyer right away so that they have first opportunity to look at it.
I think in the old days, brokers' opens were very well attended because that was prior to the MLS, where listings came out on a weekly book. Can you imagine having to look at a book where it was black and white?
I could not imagine your job if you had to do that.
Count at that point.
There's no
every
photos. 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so imagine how old that inventory or the information was.
Exactly.
By the time it got out there.
And in today's market, with the sheer speed, the crazy hours that we realtors keep, most people, including agents, we are looking online. And brokers' opens simply aren't that well attended, so we rarely do them. If you have a property that you think will be well attended and you're looking for specifically broker feedback, maybe it's a good thing to do, but not critical.
Yeah, it makes total sense. What about contingencies? I mean, there's a lot of contingencies that are involved. I mean, what is, from a seller's point of view, how are you educating or coaching them on contingencies?
That's one of the other benefits if you can generate multiple offers, because your offer is about price but also terms.
Yes.
In multiple offers, you can remove many of those contingencies. Because the buyers are competing and they need to be more competitive.
Okay. So what would be an example of that, Nicole?
We're seeing inspection contingencies come out of the contract. Okay. Either a seller has done a pre-listing inspection, so the buyer is able to use that, which has been very, very effective. Some buyers are even going in and doing an inspection prior to submitting their offer, because listings are having offer review timeframes. So they put a house on the market on, say, a Thursday, and then they review offers the next Wednesday. So that gives the seller the opportunity to get full exposure from the market, and then the buyers can come in and do their inspections ahead of time and then remove that contingency from the contract.
And I know you guys were in a mentoring class with top agents and really strategizing and coming up with the best plans and finding out what's working and what's not working. What other contingencies, Debbie, did you because you brought some into the mentoring group?
Yeah, well, 40% of our transactions right now are all cash. So the benefit to the seller at that point is that you're removing automatically the appraisal contingency and the risk that a loan might be denied, or that borrower or buyer might have a job change or a credit change. So all cash is very, very attractive, despite the end of the day, whether they have a loan or cash. It's kind of the same impact to a seller financially, but you're removing those contingencies, which is so very powerful. It's a great position to be in for a seller.
So anything else when you're looking at all of these offers? Let's say that you've got 5 in some situations. I mean, I've heard ridiculous, like 20 offers on a home. I mean, how in the heck can
It's interesting, Tina. Almost always in that multiple offer craze, there will be one that kind of stands out from the rest.
Okay.
Whether it's because they do an escalator and that escalator amount is so much higher than everybody else, or it's all cash and they're removing contingencies. But frankly, the last listing I had where we had 14 offers, what made that offer stand out is the broker was very powerful and strong, and B, they came to me with a correct contract. So often I will get contracts that are sloppy, hard to read, and all kinds of boo-boos on them, and it just makes me not want to work with that party.
Because then you know what's going to happen throughout the next 30 days or whatever they're going to be closing. And the biggest issue in the process is the representation on financing and on the real estate side, and whether that process is going to be smooth, and even more important, whether or not it's actually going to come to completion.
Exactly.
So what about pictures, and how they're presenting this on the multiple listing service?
Professional photos, I think, are absolutely critical. I think brokers out there that are not doing that or taking photos with their cell phone cameras are really doing a disservice.
We were just talking about that earlier, Ian. Go ahead, Debbie, sorry.
Yeah, really doing a disservice to the seller. Again, that as is, you're not painting a visual appealing photo for the buyer to come in. And then the professional photos you're going to be able to Photoshop, you're going to be able to get blue skies. And if you have a wide angle lens, it's really going to get a sense of the space.
So go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, I was just going to say it's really your first showing is when they look at those pictures and they decide whether or not to get in the car and come see you. It's interesting. I was with a client yesterday, and they were a buyer, and there was a new listing that popped up. And in our multiple listing service, you can put up to 25 pictures.
Really?
Of the house there. Yes.
Wow.
This house, they were professional pictures, but they were only 6 of them.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, but my client's comment, it's interesting to know the buyer perception is there's something wrong with that house. If they could only get 6 decent pictures, we don't have to go.
Well, and that's interesting because, why would you only take 6 pictures unless you don't want to show anything else in the house?
Right. So buyers put a lot of weight in those pictures. You know, what they look like, the quality of the pictures, how many pictures there are, if there are key things missing, if you happen to forget to take a picture of the kitchen, they're going to assume there's a reason you didn't take a picture of that kitchen. So
it is so important in any area in money, and all the guests I bring in studio, a lot of experts in a lot of different areas, but I say all the time, it's just so important to have the right representation. I'm going to bring that right back. We're going to take it to commercial right now. Coming up next, we're going to continue our conversation for all of you sellers listening to the show right now. But if you're a buyer as well, you want to stay tuned because it's important that you understand on the seller side, because it'll help you figure out how to get into the best position and get your offer accepted. Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate and Debbie Walter with ReMax Northwest Realtors right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.
So, Jacqueline.
Yes, Mom?
I wanted to talk to you about something and... Oh, wait. Hold on. I just got a text. Oh, there's another one. Wow. Busy me. So, anyway,
Oh, wait, Mom. I just got a message. My friends keep commenting on my comment. Oh, there's another one. So many comments on my comment.
Oh, I can't wait to watch TV tonight. Playoffs!
Hey, guys, check out my new video game. Pew, pew.
Wait. Mom, what?
What? Hold
What'd you say?
Wait a second, what?
This weekend, unplug. Take your family to the forest. There's nothing in the world like experiencing nature firsthand. Trees, paths, bluebirds, streams. Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
1 in 5 children in America go to school hungry every day. I'm Viola Davis. I was one of those children. I was one of the nearly 17 million kids who worry where their next meal will come from. Join me with the Safeway Foundation and the Entertainment Industry Foundation to help us end childhood hunger.
Help undo hunger for America's children. Go to hungeris.org to learn more.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 24th show. I'm dedicated to my listeners, providing you with the tools needed to make informed decisions on matters that affect your money. If you're hearing my show on a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to answer any questions or connect you with any of my guests that I have in studio. Please call the show 1-855-400-1150. Again, it's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And in studio, I have Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate and Debbie Walters with ReMax. And we're talking about the seller side of a real estate transaction. And before we left for a break, I was going to ask the two of you, we're talking about the seller maybe not understanding the urgency or the importance to do things extra special as if you would in any other market. It doesn't matter that we're low on inventory and there's tons of buyers. You still want to maximize your profit. But it's important to talk about your representation as well, because there's a lot of realtors out there that don't do a very good job for many reasons. Maybe they just don't know that they're not doing a very good job. And having that representation on the other side and on your side as the seller is really important. So let's talk. I want to just shift over for just 1 second on the buyer. So obviously you've got to have good representation and know the strategies to make you the best seller. But what about a buyer and their agent representation coming in these multiple offer scenarios? How much does that have a decision making if you're on the listing side representing the seller?
Knowing the buyer's agent?
Yeah, the reputation of the buyer's agent.
It's substantial. You know, the seller is worried about the buyer themselves, right? Mm-hmm. They want to know that the buyer loves their house and is committed to it and committed to the transaction. As real estate agents, we're concerned about the lender. We want to know that the transaction will close on time, that the loan will. But we put a lot of weight in that buyer's agent in terms of their ability to be professional and make sure things move along as they're supposed to.
Just as you said, Debbie, about, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So if somebody's listening right now and they're a seller, what should they be asking their realtor that they need to be doing in making sure that they're picking that right buyer?
I would say that in this market, you really want an agent that is doing at least 20 transactions a year or very close to that. And if they've got at least 5 to plus years in the business, because then they have survived and maybe even thrived during the economic downturn. You don't want an agent that's coming from a place of desperation financially themselves, because then they're maybe not apt to give you the very best advice. And you really want a broker agent that is going to be very strategic in their advice.
Makes total sense. So let's talk about a little bit of the negotiation on the seller side, because there's some things that are going on in the contract. We talk about contingencies and removing some of those, but when they're going back and they're doing some of that negotiation, let's say that there's not really maybe a multiple offer situation, because if you're not right in the market, you might be in an area that's out a little bit, and they're doing some negotiation with the buyer. What are suggestions and tips that you have in that arena?
Well, if somebody comes in and really asks and cares about the seller situation, just recently I had a pregnant client who was 9 months pregnant, high risk. What was most important to her is that she have a 60-day rent back after we closed on the purchase, so that she could stay in our home, have the baby, and then have time to move into her new home. So that was really critical. That was more critical than actual price. And ultimately, we had multiple offers, and we picked a lower price offer, but we picked the buyer that gave her the flexibility to stay in her home post-closing and rent back.
And that's a really good example to share, that just understanding, and that goes back to the agent as well, understanding what's important to the seller and what their needs are, because you got one shot to go in there and make this offer, and you want to make sure that you're structuring it and being strategic around the seller's needs. So what about things that the seller might be asking and adding in addition that they might be able to get from the buyer in this market?
You mean over and above like a rent back or?
Correct. Anything else?
You know, the biggest things I'm seeing are the price. The price is just going up. The post-closing rent back, where the seller is able to stay at no cost to the seller.
Okay.
I'm seeing that. Not seeing a whole lot beyond that.
A couple ones that I've had is where the seller, it was an estate sale, and the properties had a lot of things, whether it be old toys, a non-working car, a wood pile, just a lot of junk that needed to be removed. And in the multiple offer situation, my buyer said, hey, we will take care of all the junk. You can just leave it as is. And that was a situation where we weren't the highest buyer money-wise, but we got it because my buyer was going to spend about $500 to get rid of the junk.
Yeah.
And that is what helped them stand out.
And there's all these little, all these little things. And also you guys had mentioned at the mentoring session about the home warranty and getting an addendum or extension with that provides it for the seller as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, especially on a vacant property. There's a home warranty companies out there that will warrant the house if anything were to break down either during the listing period or the first year of ownership for the new buyer. If the new buyer comes in with an offer that says, hey, I will pay that home warranty and cover you, Mr. Seller, during the entire listing period and closing period, and I get the benefit as the buyer of having a 1-year coverage, that sometimes the cost might be $400 to $500 to the buyer, but now you're providing peace of mind for that seller, especially if it's an older home or an estate sale or an as-is where there's more apt to be issues.
Makes total sense. And what's $400 to $500 when you're, when you're getting your offer accepted in this environment? So what about escalation clauses and all this crazy stuff that's going on in the contract for the buyers to be more competitive? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the escalation clause is you come in at a certain price, and then you do your escalation clause. And the way the contract reads, it says that the seller has to show you proof of the other offer, and you will beat that other offer by X amount of dollars up to whatever your maximum is. And it's interesting. I'm seeing lots of strategies out there. I think one of the most important things buyers need to know when they are competing in a multiple offer situation is the message that their contract sends. And price is a perfect example. Let's say a house is priced at $500, and a buyer will come in and say, we want to come in at $475, but we'll do an escalator clause to $525. The message you just sent to the seller is you really don't want to pay that much money, and you're going to spend the entire time in escrow trying to nickel and dime them to get that money back. May not be the case, but usually what they'll do is they'll start at full price and then come up and say maybe we'll beat the offer by $5,000, up to a certain amount. It needs to be a big enough dollar amount that it makes a difference for the seller.
Yeah, I find it really annoying if the contract comes in and the buyer says, hey, I'll beat the next guy by $500. I mean, that just says that, I don't know, it says maybe financially you can't afford to really buy this house. So I think if you're using escalator clauses, it should at least be several $1,000s more, because then the seller is more apt to select your offer if maybe you don't have something that's as strong. Maybe you wanted the refrigerator and the seller didn't really want to give the refrigerator, but you're willing to beat the other offer by $5,000. Well, at that point, the seller will probably pick your offer, get the $5,000, and leave the refrigerator behind.
Makes total sense. And Nicole, in hearing what you said, and I think it's so important, and people don't think about it, especially on the seller side and the buyer side, you in the industry do. But the importance of looking at that contract to see if this buyer is going to actually be nitpicking things that are coming up after that process. So what's another example of that you're able to look in the contract and see, well, you know what, I don't think this is really going to be the the strongest in continuing to move forward?
The biggest thing we look at is time frames. You know, an inspection, if you are getting a contract submitted that has an inspection contingency, you know, the default in the time frame in the contract is 10 days. A seller does not want to be hanging out there for 10 days after mutual acceptance, hoping that they're moving.
Exactly.
Especially in a 30-day close, they need time to pack. So doing something as simple as just shortening that to 3 to 5 business days can make a huge difference. That tells the seller that you're committed, that you really want the property, and that you are also invested in moving forward and expediting things for everybody involved.
And what about the inspection of, you know, adding the as-is in there? Are you guys are you doing that where they're having the inspection, but they're adding in there that it's an as is, so they're not going to actually ask for anything. They just want to see what the house has to offer, but they still have the ability to get out, but there's no in between. It's either stay in or stay out.
I don't see that too much. What I say is I advise all my sellers to do a pre-inspection for many different reasons. I think it's very, very powerful. And at that point, most buyers are going to use that pre-inspection report to feel like the house has been checked out and that all main things are dealt with. And then at that point, you're completely eliminating that inspection contingency altogether.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, what outside of price, because we know that's probably the biggest issue, the biggest mistake that a seller can make, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of price, what other mistakes can a seller make that's going to affect the profit that they're going to receive on their home?
Underestimating the value of staging. I think staging and professional pictures, it goes so far and does so much.
Thinking that grandmother's rocking chair with the 1909 quilt sitting on top of it is going to appeal to today's 35 hip, very contemporary style. So even if you're occupying the home and it is of older nature or older style, please don't take offense that we as professional realtors, brokers come in and want to kind of tweak that style because people are visual.
Yes.
Buyers more so than anybody, and they get turned on by very little things, very few things, and they get turned off by even fewer things.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
It sounds silly, and we're going into summer, so it doesn't really apply, but in the winter, leave your heat on during the day. There's nothing worse than showing a house and seeing your breath inside.
Because we all want to leave and go back to our warm cars.
That makes sense. And so what about with the price or accepting the offers? Because I know that you guys have some real strategies, and you wouldn't think, again, I'm as a seller, who cares? Just give me an offer. But it really isn't quite that easy when you're trying to strategically, representing the seller, maximize those prices that are coming in. So talk about, when you're accepting contracts in that process.
I typically try to come on market on a Wednesday or Thursday and then have all offers to be submitted for review on a Monday, maybe like at the end of the business day, 5 p.m., knowing that by the time we get all signed around, it might go into Tuesday morning. That does a couple things. We have a fiduciary responsibility per the MLS to really make sure that the properties are maximized, exposed properly. Then it also allows us to do the open houses on both a Saturday and Sunday. So you're bringing in bodies, you're bringing in energy, and you're giving everybody time to do what they got to do with their lenders and possibly their inspectors.
Makes total sense. Nicole?
Yeah, I agree. I think maximizing that market time is huge.
Yeah. So anything else that you guys are dealing with that can be helpful for either on the buyer side or seller side with my listeners?
The biggest thing is really the point of making sure you stage, professionally photograph, and understanding that you get one shot out of the gate to make it right.
Makes total sense. And let's talk about my side. I am a mortgage professional. That's what I do full time. I just hang out in studio here to do my weekly show. So on the lending side, what's important for a seller to make sure that they're looking at from that lender and that pre-approval letter?
The letter especially, we've talked about a clear title and appraisal. Those are certainly acceptable contingencies. But whenever I get a letter and it's subject to income and asset verification, and I know, like you talked about, you do it one last time.
Sure.
But there are a lot of letters out there that make it sound like it hasn't been done.
Exactly. And it hasn't.
Exactly. And it sounds so silly, but a lender who will either answer the phone or return my phone call. Because again, as a listing agent, I'm concerned about whether or not that lender, especially if it's not somebody I know, that they are going to complete it in a timely manner. I always call the lender. For every offer that comes in. You would be amazed at how many have never returned my phone calls.
Unbelievable. What about a guarantee? A guarantee on closing to back up their work to make sure that it's going to move forward.
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Especially on the date. I mean, I'm sure both run into situations where you get to 2 days before closing and the lender calls and says, oh gosh, we need 2 more weeks.
Yes.
You know?
Which can be a nightmare. Yes. Debbie?
And not only the phone call at the time of the offer, because I agree, very rarely will the lenders call me back that I call, but as a loan professional, if you can save me the phone call, be proactive, talk to me, call me, brag about your client, because even though the broker may have, maybe I don't necessarily believe that broker, or maybe that broker isn't able to answer some specific questions I have. But if you, as the loan officer, call me, that's going to give me a lot of confidence that your borrower can fulfill the obligations in a timely manner. But not just at that time, really throughout the transaction, because I end up spending a lot of time every week kind of babysitting that whole process. And so if a mortgage professional can be proactive in a weekly communication with me that I can then forward to my seller, it just reassures us that we're all going to close on time.
Makes total sense. Thank you so much for coming in, both of you. It was fun to have a 3-way conversation here with us, and I just appreciate so much that you're doing in our local market with our sellers and buyers, and the education that you provide for other agents. You guys are really real leaders in the industry, and I'm proud to say that I know you.
Oh, well,
Thank
Tina, you rock.
Thank you. And this is your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, signing off for the day. I will be back next weekend, and so I'm excited to be back here in studio. And I appreciate all of you that are listening to the show. I hope you're having a great weekend. And like me, I'm working, but I hope you're doing something and enjoying the long weekend that we're having. 11:50 a.m. KKNW, and I'll talk with you next weekend.
The preceding program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 1454420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit AbsoluteLoans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.